Yes, no, can carry on.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Hi, Stan. So I see you as Stan in the resume. I'm doing good, thanks. How are you? Okay, let me introduce myself. So, so can you go ahead and introduce yourself and then just talk about your previous experience? Mhm. So basically, the backend development activities, right? Okay. So what is the framework that you used, or is it core Java? Yeah, Spring. So is it Spring Boot or Spring Core? Spring Boot. Okay. So can you just explain how do we create a Spring Boot API? Mm-hmm. 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 So how do we create the RESTful API using Spring Boot framework? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, like can you just walk me through the flow? Like where do you start? How do you generate the project? Right? How do you create controller, service layer, and then the DB layer? Mhm. Okay. So let me move on. So what are the different status codes that the API can return, right? RESTful API. What is the different status codes that it can return to the consumer or the client? Yeah. So you have a RESTful API created with the Spring Boot, right? So where do we provide the documentation of that API? And like you have created few resources, right? As part of the creation of the RESTful API, you might have few resources. So how does any client knows about your API, and how do they see the business functionality of your API to see if they want to integrate, right? So how do you maintain the documentation? Where do you maintain it? Mhm. Okay. So in REST API or any Java programming, I mean, when you create a library or when you create a function or when you create a class, right? So how do we do the exception handling on the Java side? Yeah. So how do we handle exceptions or errors in the code? Yeah, Jim, I'll continue. Just you respond in the chat. Okay.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, Stan. Sorry to keep you waiting. Uh, so do you know how do we execute multiple tasks in the same program? Like if I want to run few tasks or processes parallelly, so how do we achieve that using Spring Boot? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, basically, how do we execute multiple tasks in parallel, right, on the Java side? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you said you worked on maintaining the code and fixing the defects, right? So how do you troubleshoot for any issues? Okay. So local environment, yes, we can debug the code, but what about the next higher level environments like test and prod? So how do you monitor the application health, right? How do you monitor the application and then see if there are any issues going on in the application? So how do you troubleshoot? Mhm. Mhm. Ah, okay.